The sky above Chicago glowed with an eerie light as enormous ships descended from space. These weren't just any ships. They belonged to the Draconians, a reptilian species known for their advanced technology and aggressive nature. People gathered in the streets, staring up in awe and fear. Some recorded videos on their phones, while others prayed or cried, unsure of what was about to happen. Among the crowd stood Daniel Carter, a journalist who had spent years covering strange phenomena. Beside him was Laura Bennett, a scientist specializing in astrophysics. Both were there by chance, but neither could look away. The Draconian ships hovered silently for several minutes before a loud voice boomed through the air. It wasn't coming from speakers. It seemed to echo directly inside people's minds. "We are here to assess your worthiness," the voice said. The speaker identified himself as Commander Vrax, leader of the fleet. His tone was cold and commanding. He demanded that Earth surrender its resources and submit to Draconian rule. If humans refused, he warned, the consequences would be catastrophic. Governments around the world scrambled to respond. Emergency meetings were held, and military forces were put on high alert. Protesters filled the streets, holding signs that read, "Earth is not for sale," and "No to alien tyranny." Social media exploded with theories, panic, and debates. Some people thought the aliens were bluffing, while others believed resistance would only lead to destruction. But no one expected what happened next. Without warning, the massive fleet of ships vanished. One moment, they were there, casting long shadows over the city. The next, they were gone, leaving behind nothing but silence and confusion. The crowd froze, unsure whether to cheer or run. Daniel pulled out his notebook and began jotting down details, his mind racing with questions. Laura, meanwhile, stared at the empty sky, her scientific instincts kicking in. Something about the disappearance didn't add up. News outlets quickly picked up the story, broadcasting live updates from cities around the globe. Everyone wanted answers, but none were forthcoming. Governments issued statements urging calm, though it was clear even they were baffled. Scientists speculated about wormholes, cloaking devices, or some kind of malfunction. Conspiracy theorists claimed the whole thing was a hoax. But for those who had witnessed it firsthand, there was no denying the truth. The Draconians had come, made their demands, and then disappeared without explanation. Daniel decided to dig deeper. As a journalist, he knew how to ask the right questions, and this story felt bigger than anything he'd ever covered. He reached out to Laura, hoping her expertise might shed light on the mystery. She agreed to meet him at a nearby cafe, where they discussed what little information they had. Laura mentioned that energy readings from the event were unusual. Spikes in electromagnetic activity suggested something extraordinary had occurred. As they talked, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was being tested. Why else would such a powerful alien race show up, make threats, and then vanish? And if they truly were testing Earth, what did that say about humanity's chances of survival? Laura shared his concerns, but reminded him not to jump to conclusions. "We need more data," she said firmly. "Until we understand what happened, we're just guessing." By the end of the day, the world was still reeling from the encounter. For Daniel and Laura, however, the mystery had only just begun. They both sensed that uncovering the truth would take them far beyond what anyone could imagine, and perhaps reveal secrets about Earth itself that no one was prepared to face. In the days following the Draconian fleet's disappearance, chaos slowly gave way to curiosity. Governments around the world formed a special task force to investigate what had happened. The team included scientists, military officers, and experts from various fields. Among them were Daniel Carter and Laura Bennett, who had been at the center of the event in Chicago. Their unique perspectives made them valuable assets to the investigation. They were joined by Alex Munro, a no-nonsense military officer tasked with leading the group. The first step was to gather all available data. Satellites, radar systems, and ground-based sensors had recorded strange energy readings during the fleet's appearance and sudden vanishing. Laura spent hours analyzing the numbers, her brow furrowed in concentration. She noticed something unusual, patterns that didn't match any known technology or natural phenomenon. It was as if the ships hadn't been destroyed but somehow absorbed. She shared her findings with the team, though she admitted her theory sounded far-fetched even to her. Daniel, meanwhile, focused on historical research. He combed through archives and old records, looking for similar events where hostile forces had mysteriously disappeared after targeting Earth. To his surprise, he found several accounts spanning centuries. Ancient texts spoke of invaders who vanished without explanation. More recent reports described UFO sightings that ended abruptly, leaving witnesses baffled. While these stories varied in detail, they shared a common thread. Earth seemed to have a way of dealing with threats on its own. Alex listened to both Daniel and Laura, but remained skeptical. Even if there's some kind of pattern, he said, we need hard evidence, not theories. He pushed the team to focus on tangible leads. That's when they received a tip about strange occurrences in Iceland. Reports described unusual crystalline structures emerging overnight near a volcanic region. Locals claimed the formations appeared shortly after the Draconians vanished. The team traveled to Iceland to investigate. The sight was breathtaking yet unsettling. Towering crystal formations jutted out of the ground, glowing faintly under the dim sunlight. Laura immediately set up equipment to analyze the crystals. Her tests revealed something extraordinary. They emitted frequencies identical to those detected during the Draconian fleet's disappearance. The connection was undeniable. Daniel wandered among the crystals, snapping photos and taking notes. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were more than just rocks. What if these are part of whatever caused the fleet to vanish? He asked aloud. Laura nodded thoughtfully. It's possible, she said, but we're still missing the bigger picture. As night fell, the team gathered around a small fire, discussing their findings. Laura suggested that Earth itself might be responsible for the Draconians' disappearance. She proposed the existence of an ancient intelligence embedded within the planet, an idea that sounded like science fiction, but fit the evidence. Alex raised an eyebrow. You're saying Earth has a mind of its own? He asked skeptically. Not exactly, Laura replied. Think of it as a defense mechanism. Something deep within the planet reacts when Earth is threatened. These crystals could be part of that system. Daniel chimed in, mentioning the legends he'd uncovered. Many cultures described Earth as a living entity, often referred to as Gaia. Could this be the source of the mysterious force? The conversation left everyone uneasy but intrigued. If Earth truly had a way of protecting itself, what did that mean for humanity? Were humans simply bystanders, or did they play a role in this process? As the fire crackled and the cold wind swept across the Icelandic plains, the team realized they were only scratching the surface of a much larger mystery. Whatever the truth was, it would change everything they thought they knew about their planet and themselves. The team returned from Iceland with more questions than answers. Laura spent days running additional tests on the crystals, trying to unlock their secrets. The glowing formations were unlike anything she had ever seen, part mineral, part energy, and somehow alive. Her instruments detected faint pulses emanating from the crystals, almost like a heartbeat. It was as if they were communicating, though no one could decipher the message. Daniel, meanwhile, dug deeper into the legends of Gaia. He found references in ancient myths, indigenous stories, and even modern spiritual beliefs. Many described Earth as a sentient being, capable of protecting itself and nurturing life. Some texts went further, suggesting that humans were not just inhabitants of the planet, but deeply connected to it. One phrase caught his attention: the children of Gaia. He wondered if this connection might explain why Earth seemed to act when threatened. Alex grew impatient with the lack of concrete progress. We're wasting time, he said during one of their meetings. If Earth really has some kind of defense system, we need to figure out how it works, and fast. What if the Draconians come back? His concerns were valid. No one knew whether the aliens would return or what condition they might be in if they did. The stakes were too high to ignore. Laura decided to take a bold step. She proposed an experiment to test her theory about the crystals. Using portable equipment, she set up a small grid around one of the larger formations. She then introduced controlled bursts of electromagnetic energy, mimicking the readings from the day the fleet vanished. At first, nothing happened, but after several attempts, the crystal began to glow brighter. A low hum filled the air, growing louder until it resonated through the room. Suddenly, images flashed in everyone's minds, not dreams or hallucinations, but vivid visions. They saw Earth's history unfold, oceans forming, continents shifting, life emerging from the depths. Forests grew and died, civilizations rose and fell, and humanity spread across the globe. Through it all, there was a sense of purpose, a guiding force ensuring the survival of the planet. When the visions ended, the team sat in stunned silence. Laura broke the quiet first. "This isn't just a defense mechanism," she said softly. "It's something much older, much bigger. Earth is alive in ways we can't fully understand." Daniel nodded, still processing what he had seen. "And humans are part of it," he added. "Those visions showed us shaping the world, adapting to challenges, finding solutions. Maybe we're supposed to work with this intelligence." Alex wasn't convinced. "Even if you're right, what does that mean for us now? How do we use this to protect ourselves?" Laura hesitated before answering. "I don't think it's about using it. It's about understanding it and respecting it. If Earth sees us as partners instead of parasites, maybe it will trust us to help." The team realized they were dealing with something beyond science or military strategy. This wasn't just about defeating an enemy. It was about coexisting with a power far greater than themselves. Laura suggested they focus on learning more about the crystals and the visions. Perhaps they held clues about humanity's role in Earth's grand design. As days turned into weeks, the team worked tirelessly, driven by a mix of fear and wonder. Each discovery brought them closer to the truth, but also raised new questions. Was Earth truly sentient? Could humans communicate directly with it? And if so, what responsibilities came with that connection? One evening, as Laura studied the data, she felt a strange calm wash over her. For the first time, she understood that they weren't alone in this fight. Earth had always been watching, waiting, protecting. Now, it was humanity's turn to step up, not as conquerors or victims, but as guardians of the only home they had ever known. As the team continued their research, Laura made a discovery that changed everything. While examining the crystalline structures under a microscope, she noticed something startling. Traces of human DNA intertwined with the mineral composition. At first, she thought it was contamination, but further tests confirmed the presence of genetic material embedded within the crystals themselves. This revelation left her stunned. How could human DNA be part of Earth's defense system? Daniel joined her in the lab, eager to hear what she had found. When Laura explained the results, his eyes widened. "You're saying humans are connected to these crystals, to Gaia?" he asked, struggling to wrap his mind around the idea. Laura nodded slowly. "It's more than just a connection," she said. "These crystals might be proof that humans are meant to play a role in protecting Earth." The implications were profound. If humanity was linked to Gaia, then people weren't merely passive inhabitants of the planet. They were active participants in its survival. Daniel began piecing together clues from the legends he had studied. Many cultures described humans as children of Gaia, created to live in harmony with the planet and safeguard its future. Could this ancient belief hold a kernel of truth? Alex remained skeptical. "Even if humans are somehow tied to this system," he said, crossing his arms, "how does that help us now? We still don't know how to control it or stop the Draconians if they come back." His frustration was understandable, but Laura saw an opportunity. "Maybe we're asking the wrong question," she replied. "Instead of trying to control Gaia, we should focus on working with it. Humans might be able to guide its defenses, not replace them." To test this theory, Laura proposed another experiment. She set up a device designed to amplify brainwave activity and connected it to one of the smaller crystals. The goal was to see if human thoughts could influence the crystal's energy patterns. Daniel volunteered to participate, sitting quietly as electrodes were attached to his head. As he focused on feelings of peace and unity, the crystal began to glow faintly. When he shifted to thoughts of fear or anger, the light dimmed. Laura watched the readings closely, her heart racing. "This is incredible," she whispered. "Human emotions can affect the crystals. Maybe our collective consciousness is what activates Gaia's defenses." Daniel opened his eyes, looking both amazed and overwhelmed. "If that's true, then humanity's actions, our choices, might determine whether Earth fights for us or against us." The team spent the next few days exploring this idea. They invited volunteers to participate in similar experiments, recording their reactions and analyzing the data. Each session revealed new insights. Positive emotions strengthened the crystal's energy, while negativity weakened it. It seemed that Gaia responded not just to external threats, but also to humanity's internal state. Despite the progress, Alex remained uneasy. "What happens if we can't keep it up?" he asked during one late-night discussion. "People aren't exactly known for making wise decisions. What if we fail Gaia and ourselves?" Laura didn't have an easy answer. "We'll have to try," she said simply. "For better or worse, we're part of this system now." As the experiments continued, Daniel reflected on what they had learned. Humanity's role wasn't just about surviving. It was about thriving in balance with Earth. The crystals were a reminder of that bond, a bridge between humans and the planet they called home. For the first time, he felt hopeful. If people could harness their connection to Gaia, they might stand a chance against any threat, even one as powerful as the Draconians. But hope came with responsibility. The team knew they couldn't solve this alone. Their findings needed to reach the world, inspiring others to embrace their role as guardians of Earth. The question was how, and whether humanity would listen before it was too late. Just as the team began to understand Gaia's connection to humanity, ominous signs appeared in the sky. Strange ripples distorted the atmosphere, and distant rumblings echoed across the horizon. Then, without warning, the Draconian fleet reappeared. But something was wrong. The massive ships looked battered and unstable, their sleek surfaces marred by cracks and scorch marks. They moved erratically, as if struggling against an invisible force. Commander Vrax's voice boomed once again, but this time it carried a tone of desperation. "Your world is cursed," he shouted, his words trembling with anger and fear. "Release us from this prison, or face our wrath." His message sent shockwaves through governments and populations worldwide. People watched in stunned silence as the fleet hovered above Earth, trapped between dimensions. The team gathered urgently to discuss the situation. Laura explained that the Draconians weren't lying. They were caught in Gaia's grasp, suspended in a liminal space where time and physics didn't behave normally. "It's like they're stuck between worlds," she said, pointing to readings that showed fluctuating energy fields surrounding the ships. Daniel nodded grimly. "Gaia must have pulled them out of our reality when they tried to leave." Alex paced the room, his expression tense. "So what do we do now? Leave them there, or try to free them?" The question hung heavy in the air. On one hand, releasing the Draconians could mean risking another attack on Earth. On the other hand, keeping them imprisoned might provoke even greater hostility, or worse, destabilize whatever force was holding them. Laura suggested they attempt communication with Gaia using the crystals. If humans were truly connected to the planet's defense system, perhaps they could negotiate a solution. "We need to show Gaia that we're ready to take responsibility," she said. "If we can prove we're willing to protect Earth, maybe it will trust us enough to let the Draconians go." Daniel agreed, though he voiced concerns about the risks. What if we make things worse? What if Gaia sees this as weakness instead of strength? Alex chimed in, his voice firm. "We don't have a choice. Sitting here doing nothing isn't going to help anyone. After a heated debate, the team decided to move forward with Laura's plan. They set up a makeshift lab near the crystalline formations in Iceland. Using the same equipment from earlier experiments, Laura prepared to channel human emotions into the crystals, hoping to send a message to Gaia. Daniel volunteered to lead the effort, focusing on feelings of compassion and unity. Alex stood nearby, ready to intervene if anything went wrong. As Daniel closed his eyes and concentrated, the crystals began to glow brighter than ever before. A warm hum filled the air, vibrating through the ground beneath their feet. Images flickered in their minds, visions of Earth healing itself, forests regrowing, oceans cleansing. Then came scenes of humans working together, building sustainable cities, protecting wildlife, and restoring balance to the planet. Suddenly, the hum grew louder, almost deafening. The team stumbled back as a surge of energy shot into the sky. Above them, the Draconian ships shuddered violently, their forms flickering in and out of view. For a moment, it seemed like the fleet might collapse entirely. But then, slowly, the ships stabilized. One by one, they emerged fully into Earth's atmosphere, hovering silently. Commander Vrax's voice returned, quieter this time, but still laced with bitterness. "You have shown strength and wisdom," he admitted reluctantly. "Do not make us regret sparing you." With that, the fleet turned and vanished into the stars, leaving behind an uneasy peace. The team exchanged glances, relief mixing with uncertainty. They had succeeded in freeing the Draconians, but at what cost? Had Gaia truly accepted humanity as its partner, or was this just a temporary reprieve? As they packed up their equipment, Laura spoke softly. "This isn't the end. It's only the beginning." The aftermath of the Draconians' departure left Earth in a state of fragile calm. Governments scrambled to address the situation, holding emergency meetings and issuing statements urging unity and caution. For Daniel, Laura, and Alex, however, the experience had changed everything. They knew the world couldn't return to how it was before, not after what they had witnessed. Laura spent hours reviewing the data from their final experiment. The energy surge that freed the Draconians had been immense, far greater than anything they had generated before. It wasn't just human emotion fueling the crystals. It was something deeper, something tied to humanity's collective will. "Gaia responded to us," she said during one of their late-night discussions. "But it wasn't just about releasing the fleet. It was about showing we're capable of making choices, for ourselves and for the planet." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. He had spent days reflecting on the visions Gaia had shared with them. Those images weren't random. They were a roadmap. Earth wanted humans to thrive, but only if they embraced their role as guardians. "We've been given a second chance," he said, "but it's up to us to prove we deserve it." Alex listened quietly, his usual skepticism softened by recent events. Even he couldn't deny the weight of what they had accomplished, or the responsibility that came with it. Word of their findings began to spread. At first, only a few trusted officials were informed, but soon the story reached the public. News outlets picked up on the connection between humanity and Gaia, sparking debates worldwide. Some dismissed the idea as nonsense, while others saw it as a wake-up call. Protests demanding environmental action gained momentum, and grassroots movements sprang up, calling for sustainable living and global cooperation. Governments took notice. In an unprecedented move, world leaders convened a summit to discuss Earth's future. Representatives from nearly every nation attended, including scientists, activists, and even members of the team. Laura presented her research, explaining the link between human actions and Gaia's response. "We're not separate from this planet," she told the assembly. "We're part of it. If we continue to harm Earth, we harm ourselves, and we risk losing Gaia's protection." Her words resonated deeply. By the end of the summit, a new agreement was drafted, the Global Accord for Planetary Stewardship. It outlined ambitious goals for reducing pollution, preserving ecosystems, and promoting renewable energy. Critics argued the plan was too idealistic, but supporters pointed to the Draconian incident as proof that drastic change was necessary. For Daniel, the shift felt both inspiring and overwhelming. He wrote extensively about the events, publishing articles and interviews that reached millions. His book, titled *Children of Gaia*, became a bestseller, blending science, history, and philosophy to explain humanity's place in the grand design. Readers responded passionately, many vowing to live more sustainably. Alex found himself transformed by the experience. Once focused solely on military strategy, he now advocated for peaceful resolutions and international collaboration. He worked closely with defense departments to develop nonviolent approaches to conflict, emphasizing diplomacy over domination. Though some colleagues mocked his newfound ideals, Alex stood firm. "If Gaia can show mercy," he said, "so can we." Laura continued her research, dedicating herself to understanding Gaia's mysteries. She collaborated with scientists around the world, studying the crystalline structures and exploring ways to strengthen humanity's bond with Earth. Her work inspired a new generation of researchers, eager to bridge the gap between science and spirituality. As life slowly returned to normal, whispers of Gaia's presence lingered in the hearts of those who knew the truth. Humanity had faced its greatest test and passed. But the question remained: would people honor their promise to protect Earth, or would greed and carelessness undo the fragile harmony they had earned? One evening, as Daniel stood on a hill overlooking the city, he felt a quiet sense of hope. The lights below flickered like stars, a reminder of humanity's resilience and potential. Gaia had given them a gift, a chance to rewrite their story. Whether they succeeded depended entirely on the choices they made next. Months passed since the Draconians' departure, and Earth began to change in subtle but significant ways. The Global Accord for Planetary Stewardship sparked a wave of action worldwide. Cities adopted green technologies, nations worked together to clean polluted rivers, and communities planted millions of trees. For the first time in decades, there was a sense of hope, a shared belief that humanity could create a better future. Daniel watched these changes unfold with cautious optimism. His book had ignited conversations in homes, schools, and governments. People were starting to see themselves not as rulers of Earth, but as caretakers. He often received letters from readers sharing stories of how they had changed their habits, using less plastic, conserving water, or supporting eco-friendly businesses. Each message reminded him that small actions, when multiplied, could lead to big results. Laura remained at the forefront of research, studying the crystalline structures and their connection to Gaia. Her team discovered that the crystals responded not only to human emotions, but also to collective efforts. When large groups worked together toward positive goals, the crystals emitted stronger energy signals. It was as if Gaia rewarded unity and cooperation. Laura published her findings, inspiring even more people to join the movement for a sustainable planet. Alex, meanwhile, became an unlikely advocate for peace. He traveled to conflict zones, mediating disputes and encouraging dialogue. His message was simple: humanity's survival depended on working together. "If we can face alien invaders and win," he often said, "surely we can solve our own problems without violence." Though some dismissed him as idealistic, others admired his determination. Slowly but surely, his efforts began to bear fruit. Despite the progress, challenges remained. Corporations resisted new regulations, fearing losses in profit. Politicians argued over funding for environmental projects, and in some places, old habits died hard. But every setback was met with renewed determination. Protesters filled streets, demanding accountability. Innovators developed solutions to replace outdated systems. Teachers educated children about the importance of protecting Earth. Humanity stumbled, but it kept moving forward. One evening, Daniel, Laura, and Alex met at a quiet park to reflect on everything that had happened. The air was cool, and the stars shone brightly above them. "Do you think we're doing enough?" Daniel asked, breaking the silence. Laura smiled softly. "We're doing what we can," she replied. And maybe that's all Gaia ever expected from us. To try. Alex nodded. For once, I feel like we're on the right path. Not just for ourselves, but for generations to come. They sat there for a while, watching the world turn beneath the vast sky. Somewhere deep within the planet, the crystals pulsed faintly, a reminder of the bond between humans and Earth. As the months turned into years, the story of the Draconian fleet faded into legend. Textbooks mentioned it briefly, calling it a turning point in human history. What stayed alive, however, was the spirit of collaboration it inspired. People learned to listen, to each other, to nature, and to the silent voice of Gaia guiding them. But the journey wasn't over. Earth still faced challenges, climate shifts, resource shortages, and the lingering scars of past mistakes. Yet humanity now understood its role in shaping the planet's destiny. Every tree planted, every river cleaned, and every act of kindness strengthened the bond with Gaia. And with each step forward, the ancient intelligence seemed to grow stronger, its protection more steadfast. On clear nights, Daniel would look up at the stars and wonder if the Draconians were watching. Would they return someday? If they did, he hoped they'd find a world transformed, not by fear, but by love and responsibility. For now, though, he took comfort in knowing that humanity had chosen a new path. Together, they had become true children of Gaia, guardians of the only home they had ever known. And so, life continued, fragile yet resilient, uncertain yet full of promise. The story of Earth and its people was far from finished, but one thing was certain: humanity had finally begun to write a better chapter.